Ambassador Kethrix stood at the observation window of Concord Station and watched the human ship dock. The vessel was round and soft, painted white, with a blue symbol on its side. The symbol showed a hand holding a smaller hand. This was the mark of the Human Relief Corps, and Kethrix had seen it on 1,000 ships across 100 worlds. He clicked his mandibles together, a sign of deep thought among his people, the Villani. His compound eyes tracked the ship as it settled into the docking bay. Medical supplies, probably, or food, or blankets. Always something to help, never something to harm. "They are early," said Counselor Varn, who stood beside him. Varn was Korthani, and his armored body was twice the size of Kethrix. His scales were dark green, and his 4 arms were crossed over his massive chest. The humans are always early when there is suffering somewhere. Kethrix detected something in Varn's voice. It might have been respect. It might have been contempt. With the Korthani, it was hard to tell. "They have been good partners in the relief effort on Sindari Prime," Kethrix said carefully. "The floods killed many. The humans saved many more." Varn made a sound like grinding rocks. This was Korthani laughter. "Yes, they are very good at saving, very good at helping, very good at everything except fighting." Kethrix said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence was sometimes the wisest response. The Galactic Concord had existed for 2,000 years. It was a union of 47 species, spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. The Villani had been founding members. The Korthani had joined 500 years later, after a war that had cost millions of lives. The Sindari, with their powerful minds, had come next, then dozens of others, each bringing something valuable to the Great Alliance. Humanity had joined 300 years ago. They were young, their ships were slow, their bodies were soft and weak. They had no natural armor like the Korthani, no telepathy like the Sindari, no hive coordination like the Villani. They were, by any measure, one of the least impressive species in the Concord. And yet, Kethrix remembered his first meeting with a human, 60 years ago. He had been a young diplomat, assigned to observe an aid mission on a world called Thessar IV. A disease had swept through the population, killing thousands. The Concord had sent medical teams, but the disease was aggressive and strange, and the teams had failed. Then the humans came. They worked for days without sleep. They held the hands of the dying. They sang soft songs to frighten children. They cried when patients died and laughed when patients lived. They were emotional in ways that made Kethrix uncomfortable. They were also relentless. They found a cure in 6 days. They saved 80% of the population. When it was over, the human mission leader, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, had sat beside Kethrix on a broken wall and watched the sunset. "Why do you do this?" Kethrix had asked. "Your species gains nothing from this mission. These people cannot repay you." Dr. Chen had smiled. Humans did that a lot. They showed their teeth when they were happy, which had confused Kethrix at first because among many species, showing teeth was a threat. "We do it because they need help," Dr. Chen had said. That is enough. Kethrix had not understood then. He was not sure he understood now. But he had watched humans for 60 years, and he had come to accept that this was simply what they were. Helpers, healers, the gentle giants of the galaxy. The observation window showed more ships now. A Korthani battlecruiser moved past, its weapons bristling from every surface. A Sindari mine ship floated by, its crystalline hull glowing with psychic energy. A Villani swarm carrier hummed through space, its thousands of small ships moving as one, and among them, the human vessels, medical ships, cargo haulers, diplomatic cruisers. Not a weapon among them. "There is a council meeting in 1 hour," Varn said. "The humans have requested to speak about increasing aid to the outer colonies." "More aid," Kethrix said. "That is all they ever request. It is all they know how to do." Varn turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor. Kethrix remained at the window, thinking. The truth was that humanity confused him. They had history. He had read about it in their own records, which they shared freely with anyone who asked. They had fought wars among themselves, terrible wars with weapons that could burn cities to ash. They had nearly destroyed their own world. Not once, but several times. They had been violent. They had been dangerous. And then they had changed. Something had happened to humanity about 400 years ago. Their records called it the Solar Wars. It had lasted 50 years and killed billions. When it ended, the survivors had looked at what they had done and made a choice. They had put away their weapons. They had sealed their warships. They had decided to become something different. Now they built hospitals instead of battleships. They trained doctors instead of soldiers. They solved problems with words instead of weapons. Most species in the Concord found this admirable. Some found it foolish. A few found it suspicious. Kethrix found it strange. The Villani had a saying, "A hunter does not forget how to hunt." Humans had been hunters once, the most dangerous hunters in their region of space. How could they simply forget? But 60 years of watching them had given Kethrix no answer. Humans seemed genuinely committed to peace. They turned the other cheek, as their old saying went. They responded to violence with patience. They absorbed insults without complaint. Just last month, a Korthani warship had destroyed a human colony transport. It was an accident, the Korthani claimed. Their weapons had malfunctioned. 3,000 humans had died. Humanity had responded with a formal protest. Nothing more. The Korthani had not even apologized. Kethrix clicked his mandibles again. It did not make sense. Nothing about humans made sense. But he had long ago stopped trying to understand them. He simply accepted them for what they appeared to be. The kindest, gentlest, most patient species in the galaxy. He made his way to the council chamber. The room was vast, with seats arranged in a circle around a central speaking platform. Representatives from all 47 species were present, though some attended only as holograms. The air smelled of 100 different atmospheres, mixed together by the station's environmental systems. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the central platform. She was old now, over 90 years by human counting, but her eyes were still sharp. Kethrix recognized her immediately, the same woman who had sat with him on Thessar IV all those years ago. She had risen high in human society since then. The outer colonies need more supplies, she was saying. The recent solar storms have destroyed crops. Millions face starvation. We are requesting Concord support for an expanded relief mission. Humanity's compassion is noted, said High Counselor Thex, an ancient Sindari whose telepathic voice echoed in every mind present. But there are other concerns. The reports from the border. A murmur went through the chamber. Kethrix felt his antennae twitch. Yes, the reports. The Harrow, someone said. It was Varn, standing at the Korthani section. They have destroyed 2 systems in the outer reaches. We should be discussing defense, not charity. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. The Harrow are a concern for the military council. I am addressing the humanitarian council. The Harrow do not distinguish between military and humanitarian. Varn growled. They consume everything. They care nothing for your mercy or your kindness. They will come for us all. Then we will face them when they come, Chen said calmly. Until then, people are starving. I would like to help them. The debate continued for an hour. Kethrix listened but did not speak. He was thinking about the Harrow. No one knew where they came from. They had appeared at the edge of the galaxy 6 months ago, emerging from the void between stars. They were machines, or something like machines. Their ships were black and angular, covered in sharp edges and strange symbols. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply arrived at a world, stripped it of all resources and life, and moved on. 2 systems had fallen already, billions dead. The Concord had sent fleets to stop them, but the Harrow adapted to every weapon. Korthani plasma cannons were useless after the first battle. Sindari psychic attacks slid off their machine minds like water off stone. Villani swarm tactics were countered with mathematical precision. Nothing worked. The Harrow kept coming, and humanity kept talking about aid missions. Kethrix understood Varn's frustration. The galaxy was facing an existential threat, and the humans were worried about food shipments. It seemed foolish. It seemed weak. But Kethrix had lived a long time, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Something about the humans bothered him. Not their kindness, not their pacifism. Something deeper. Something he could not name. He watched Admiral Chen as she spoke. Her voice was calm. Her body was relaxed. She seemed completely untroubled by the talk of the Harrow. That was what bothered him, Kethrix realized. Every other species in the room was afraid. He could smell the fear chemicals in the air. The Korthani were aggressive because they were scared. The Sindari were broadcasting waves of anxiety. The Villani, his own people, were clicking their mandibles in distress, but the humans showed no fear at all. Why not? Their ships had no weapons. Their people had no training. If the Harrow came to Earth, humanity would be helpless. They should be more afraid than anyone. Instead, Admiral Chen was calmly discussing grain shipments. The meeting ended without resolution, as meetings often did. Kethrix made his way back to the observation deck, his mind troubled. He found a human there, standing at the window. It was a young man in the white uniform of the Relief Corps. He was watching the stars with a strange expression on his face. "Ambassador," the young man said, noticing Kethrix. "I am Lieutenant Marcus Webb. I am serving on the hospital ship Hope's Mercy." "I know that ship," Kethrix said. "It does good work. We try." Webb smiled, but there was something sad in his eyes. "We are heading to the Kasari system tomorrow. There are refugees from the outer colonies. Children, mostly. We are bringing them to safety." "That is kind," Kethrix said. "It is what we do." Webb turned back to the window. "My grandmother told me stories, about what humans used to be." Before the change, Kethrix's antennae perked up. Humans rarely spoke of their violent past. "What kind of stories?" "War stories." Webb's voice was quiet. "She said her great-grandmother fought in the Solar Wars, said she was a pilot, shot down 30 enemy ships before she was captured, escaped from a prison camp by killing 6 guards with her bare hands." Kethrix said nothing. He could not imagine a human doing such things. "I asked my grandmother once," Webb continued, "if she missed it, the fighting, the power." She got very quiet. Then she said something I never forgot. "What did she say?" Webb looked at Kethrix with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than his young face. "She said we did not stop fighting because we forgot how. We stopped because we remembered what we were capable of, and it terrified us." A chill ran through Kethrix's exoskeleton. "I do not understand." "Neither did I." Webb smiled again, and the strange expression was gone, replaced by the usual human warmth. "Sorry, Ambassador. I did not mean to be so dark. I should go. The Hope's Mercy leaves at dawn, and I have patience to prepare." He walked away, leaving Kethrix alone at the window. The stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the Harrow were moving, consuming, destroying. The galaxy was at war, and humanity was sending hospital ships. Kethrix thought about the young man's grandmother, about pilots and prison camps and killing with bare hands, about a species that had chosen to be gentle because they were terrified of what they could be. He thought about Admiral Chen's calm eyes and steady voice. He thought about the Korthani warship that had killed 3,000 humans and received nothing but a formal protest in response. And for the first time in 60 years, Kethrix wondered if he had been looking at humanity all wrong. Not weak, not foolish, not naive, just waiting. But waiting for what? He did not know. He hoped he would never find out. In the distance, the Hope's Mercy glowed white against the darkness, its blue symbol bright and clear, a hand holding a smaller hand. Compassion, mercy, hope. Kethrix watched it for a long time. He did not know that in 6 months, that ship would be burning wreckage, and 40,000 souls would be screaming into the void. He did not know that the screams would be heard on Earth. He did not know what would answer. But deep in his old bones, in the part of him that had survived 100 years of galactic politics, he felt something. A premonition. The galaxy was about to learn something about humanity, something that had been hidden for 300 years, something that the humans themselves had tried to forget. And when that lesson came, Kethrix suspected, no one would ever look at the gentle giants the same way again. The stars burned on, cold and patient. The Harrow moved through the darkness, and humanity waited. 6 months had passed since the Harrow first appeared, and the galaxy was dying. Kethrix stood in the council chamber and watched the holographic display flicker with bad news. Red markers spread across the map like a disease. Each marker was a fallen system, a dead world, billions of lives extinguished. The Harrow had taken 17 systems now. They showed no signs of slowing down. "The 7th Fleet is gone," Admiral Vorn of the Korthani military reported. His voice was hollow. His scales had lost their shine. "They adapted to our new weapons in less than an hour. We lost 400 ships. High Counselor Thex, the ancient Sindari, broadcast waves of grief that made everyone in the room wince. The mind-link attempt has failed. Their machine consciousnesses are beyond our reach. We cannot touch them. The swarms? Someone asked. Kethrix answered that question himself. The Villani swarms were calculated and countered. They predicted our movements before we made them. We lost 2 million drones in the Battle of Nexar. The chamber fell silent. 47 species, united against a common enemy, and none of them had found a way to win. What about the humans? Varn asked suddenly. His voice was sharp with frustration. Where are the humans in all of this? Everyone turned to look at the human section of the chamber. Admiral Sarah Chen sat there with her small delegation, calm as always. Her white hair was pulled back from her weathered face. Her eyes were steady. We are here, she said simply. You are here, Varn snarled. Sitting, watching, while the rest of us fight and die. What are you contributing to this war? We have evacuated 4.2 million refugees from threatened systems, Chen replied. We have established 17 emergency colonies on protected worlds. We are providing medical care, food, and shelter to survivors across. Refugees. Varn slammed his 4 fists on the table before him. The sound echoed through the chamber. We do not need nurses. We need warriors. We need weapons. We need ships that can fight. Chen did not flinch. We are doing what we do best. You do nothing. You have always done nothing. Varn rose to his full height, towering over the assembled diplomats. For 300 years, you have hidden behind your pacifism while the rest of us maintained the peace. You built hospitals while we built fleets. You trained doctors while we trained soldiers. And now, when the galaxy faces extinction, you offer us bandages? The chamber stirred. Kethrix could see agreement on many faces. The frustration had been building for months. Humanity's refusal to join the military effort had become a source of growing resentment. General Varn, Chen said quietly, we are doing what we can. No. Varn pointed one massive claw at her. You are doing what you choose. There is a difference. You have ships. You have resources. You have a population of 12 billion. You could build a fleet that would rival the Korthani. You could train an army. You could help us fight. We could, Chen agreed. Then why do you not? Chen was silent for a long moment. The entire chamber waited. Because we remember what we are, she said finally. That is precisely why we hold back. Varn made a sound of disgust. Riddles. Always riddles with your kind. He turned to the rest of the council. I say, we demand humanity contribute to the war effort. If they will not fight willingly, perhaps they should be compelled. You cannot compel us, Chen said. Her voice was still calm, but something in it made Kethrix's antennae twitch, a hint of something cold beneath the warmth. The Concord Charter guarantees species autonomy. We choose our own path. Then choose a better path, Varn roared. Or watch as the harrow consume everything you claim to love. The debate raged for hours. In the end, nothing was decided. Nothing was ever decided anymore. The council was paralyzed by fear and division, and the harrow continued their advance. Kethrix found Admiral Chen in the corridor after the meeting. She was standing at a window, watching the stars. Her face was tired but peaceful. Admiral, he said carefully. May I speak with you? Of course, Ambassador. She smiled at him. It has been a long time since Thesser IV. You remember. I remember everyone I have helped, and everyone I could not help. The smile faded. There are many more of the latter these days. Kethrix moved to stand beside her. General Varn was harsh, but his frustration is shared by many. The galaxy is burning, and humanity sends hospital ships. Yes. Is there nothing more you can do? Chen was quiet for a moment. What do you know about human history, Ambassador? I know you were violent once. I know you fought wars among yourselves. I know you changed. Changed? Chen seemed to taste the word. Yes, we changed. But change is not the same as forgetting. She turned to look at him with those steady eyes. Do you know what the Solar Wars were, Ambassador? Truly, a conflict among your people. A civil war. It was the end of the world. Chen's voice was soft. 50 years of fighting. Weapons that could crack planets. Diseases engineered to kill billions. We did things to each other that I cannot describe without weeping. By the time it ended, we had killed 8 billion of our own species. 8 billion. and we had the capacity to kill many more. Kethrick said nothing. The numbers were staggering. When it was over, Chen continued. The survivors looked at what we had done. We looked at the weapons we had built, the soldiers we had become, the monsters we had unleashed, and we were horrified. Not by our enemies, by ourselves. So you put away your weapons. We sealed them. We locked them behind doors that were never meant to open. We took our soldiers and made them farmers, teachers, doctors. We took our battleships and turned them into cargo haulers. We did everything we could to forget what we were capable of. Chen's voice grew heavy. Because what we were capable of, Ambassador, was the extinction of everything we touched. Kethrix felt a chill run through him. You speak as if you could still. We do not speak of it, Chen said firmly. We do not think of it. That is the point. We chose to be gentle, because the alternative was too terrible to contemplate. They stood in silence for a long moment. But the Harrow, Kethrix said finally, they do not care about your choice. They will come for Earth eventually. They will consume your people. What then? Chen's eyes moved to the stars. Somewhere out there, the Harrow were advancing. Somewhere out there, billions were dying. Then we will do what we must, she said quietly. But not before. Never before. Because once we start, we do not know if we can stop. She walked away, leaving Kethrix alone with his thoughts. The weeks that followed were the darkest in conquered history. The Harrow breached the inner territories, pushing past every defensive line. The great fleets of the Korthani were shattered. The Sindari homeworld fell silent as millions of telepaths died screaming. The Villani swarms were scattered across a dozen systems, broken and leaderless. And still the humans sent hospital ships. They worked tirelessly, evacuating civilians from doomed worlds. Their vessels moved through war zones, painted white with their symbol of clasped hands, trusting in mercy that the Harrow did not possess. Many ships were lost. Many humans died. But they kept coming, kept helping, kept saving whoever they could. Kethrix watched them and wondered. He saw humans crying over alien children they had never met. He saw them working until they collapsed from exhaustion, then rising to work again. He saw them give their own food to refugees, their own blood to the wounded, their own lives to protect strangers. They were not cowards. Whatever else they were not cowards. But they would not fight. The breaking point came on a day that Kethrix would remember for the rest of his long life. The Hope's Mercy was on a routine evacuation mission, collecting refugees from a system that the Harrow would reach in days. The ship was packed with 40,000 souls, mostly children, 12 different species, gathered together in the cargo holds and corridors, waiting to be taken to safety. The Harrow fleet arrived early. Kethrix was on Concord Station when the distress call came through. He heard the captain's voice, steady despite the fear, reporting that they were surrounded. He heard the children crying in the background. He heard the captain say that the Harrow were not interested in the adults. They were targeting the children. The Harrow had calculated, with their cold machine logic, that breaking humanity's spirit would collapse galactic morale, and they had determined that the most efficient way to break humanity's spirit was to kill the children they were trying to save. The Hope's Mercy had no weapons. It had no escorts. It had only its white hull and its symbol of mercy and its 40,000 passengers. The Harrow did not care. The attack lasted 17 minutes. The Hope's Mercy tried to run, tried to hide, tried everything a hospital ship could try. Nothing worked. The Harrow methodically destroyed the engines first, then the life support, then the hull itself. 40,000 souls. No survivors. The galaxy watched in horror. Even the Korthani, hardened by centuries of war, were shaken. This was not battle. This was butchery. And on Earth, something stirred. Kethrix was in the council chamber when the human delegation received the news. He saw Admiral Chen's face go pale. He saw her hands tremble, just for a moment, before she steadied herself. He saw her close her eyes and take a deep breath. When she opened her eyes again, something was different. The warmth was still there, but beneath it was something else. Something old and cold and terrible. "Excuse me," she said to the council. Her voice was perfectly controlled. "I need to contact Earth." She walked out of the chamber without waiting for permission. The human delegation followed her in silence. Over the next few days, strange things began to happen. Human communications went quiet. The normally chatty species, always broadcasting messages of hope and support, fell silent. Their aid ships began returning to Earth, one by one, leaving half-finished missions behind. The Concorde sent messages, desperate pleas for help. The responses were brief and formal. Humanity is reassessing its position. Please stand by. Kethrix tried to contact Admiral Chen, but she was unavailable. Everyone was unavailable. The entire human diplomatic corps had vanished. Meanwhile, the supply lines collapsed. Without human logistics, the refugee camps ran out of food. Without human doctors, the field hospitals failed. Without human coordination, the evacuation efforts fell apart. They have abandoned us, Varn said bitterly in a council meeting. I always knew they were cowards. Now they have proved it. But Kethrix was not so sure. He remembered Chen's eyes when she received the news. He remembered the cold thing beneath her warmth. He remembered her words. Once we start, we do not know if we can stop. Something was happening on Earth. Something the galaxy had not seen in 300 years. The human homeworld was visible from Concord Station, a blue and green jewel hanging in space. Kethrix spent hours at the observation window, watching it. Sometimes he thought he saw flashes of light in orbit, as if something was being built or awakened. Sometimes he thought he heard strange signals, encrypted and ancient, pulsing through space. Reports began to filter in from human colonies. Military installations that had been sealed for centuries were opening. Archives that had been locked since the solar wars were being accessed. Veterans who had spent decades as teachers and farmers were gathering, remembering old training, speaking of old oaths, and in the shadows of human space, ships were emerging from hidden shipyards. Ships that did not look like hospital vessels. Ships with sharp angles and dark hulls and weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Kethrix felt the chill again. Deeper this time. What are they doing? He whispered to himself. He would find out soon enough. 1 week after the destruction of the Hope's Mercy, every communication channel in the galaxy carried the same message. It was Admiral Chen, standing alone against a backdrop of stars. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with something that made Kethrix's exoskeleton tighten. For 300 years, she said, we showed you who we chose to be. We chose to heal rather than harm. We chose to build rather than destroy. We chose peace over war, mercy over vengeance, love over hate. This was our choice. This was our gift to the galaxy. She paused. The silence stretched across 1,000 worlds. The Harrow have rejected our gift. They have murdered our children. They have forced us to remember what we tried so hard to forget. Her voice hardened. Now you will see what we have always been. The message ended, and across the galaxy, the human fleet began to move. Kethrix watched from the observation deck as they emerged from fold space around Concord Station. Thousands of ships, appearing out of nowhere, filling the void with angular darkness. They were nothing like the soft white vessels he had known for 60 years. They were predators. They were nightmares given form. The station's sensors screamed warnings. Weapons were detected. Power signatures off the scale. Technology that the Concorde's computers could not even classify. What are those? Varn whispered. For the first time in Kethrix's memory, the Korthani general sounded afraid. Kethrix did not answer. He was watching the lead ship, a massive black vessel with the outline of a burning hand painted on its hull. The hand was not open in greeting. It was closed in a fist. The humans had been waiting, and now the waiting was over. Commander James Okonkwo had been a teacher for 23 years. He taught history at a small school in Lagos, on the western coast of Africa. His students loved him. He was patient and kind, with a deep laugh that filled the classroom. He had never raised his voice in anger. He had never struck anyone. He spent his weekends volunteering at a local orphanage, teaching children to read. No one who knew him would have believed he was capable of violence. But James Okonkwo had not always been a teacher. He was in his garden when the message came. The sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. He was planting tomatoes, his hands deep in the dark soil, thinking about the lesson he would teach tomorrow. His comm unit buzzed. He wiped his hands and answered it. The voice on the other end was mechanical, synthesized. It spoke words that James had not heard in 30 years, words that he had hoped never to hear again. Continuity protocol activated. Commander Okonkwo, you are recalled to active service. Report to Assembly Point Gamma within 48 hours. This is not a drill. The comm unit went silent. James stood very still in his garden. The tomato plants forgotten. The setting sun cast long shadows across his face. For a moment, he was not a teacher anymore. He was something older, something harder. Then he went inside to pack. The continuity protocol was humanity's deepest secret. It had been created in the aftermath of the solar wars, when the survivors sealed away their weapons and chose a new path. The protocol was a failsafe, a last resort, a promise that if humanity was ever pushed beyond all endurance, they would have the means to respond. For 300 years, the protocol had slept. The archives remained sealed. The ships remained hidden. The soldiers became civilians. Everyone hoped that the protocol would never be needed, that humanity's choice to be gentle would be enough. The Hope's mercy had proved them wrong. James traveled to a location that did not appear on any map. It was deep underground, beneath a mountain range that had been declared a nature preserve centuries ago. The facility was vast, stretching for kilometers in every direction. It had been built during the solar wars and maintained in secret ever since. He was not alone. Thousands of others were arriving, men and women from across human space. They came from every profession, every background, every walk of life. Teachers and doctors and farmers and artists. They smiled at each other, shared stories, asked about families and careers, but there was something in their eyes, something that ordinary people would not recognize. James recognized it because he saw it in his own reflection. They were all veterans. They had all served before the change. They had all been soldiers. Once, in a war that the galaxy had forgotten, and they all remembered. The facility's commander was a woman named General Yuki Tanaka. She was small and slight, with gray hair and a gentle face. She looked like someone's grandmother. She had been a kindergarten teacher for the last 40 years. Before that, she had commanded the assault on Mars during the final days of the solar wars. Her tactics were still studied in classified military academies. Her kill count was never spoken aloud. "You know why you are here," she said to the assembled veterans. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the vast hall. "The Harrow have taken 40,000 of our children. They have declared war on everything we have built. They believe we are weak." She paused. "They are about to learn otherwise." The archives opened. James walked through corridors he had not seen in 3 decades, past weapons he had tried to forget, past vehicles that haunted his dreams. Everything was exactly as it had been left, preserved, waiting. He found his old uniform in a locker with his name on it. The fabric was black and gray, designed for stealth and combat. It was nothing like the bright colors he wore as a teacher. He put it on, and the transformation was immediate. The teacher faded. The soldier returned. Around him, others were undergoing the same change. The kind grandmother became a cold-eyed general. The cheerful farmer became a tactical specialist. The gentle nurse became a combat medic whose hands had seen more death than life. They trained, they remembered, they prepared, and in the orbital shipyards that had been hidden behind false asteroids and sensor ghosts, the ships emerged. They had names like Wrath of Terra, Final Answer, and Never Again. They were not beautiful, they were not elegant. They were designed for one purpose only: to destroy anything that threatened humanity. James was assigned to the Prometheus, a ship that looked like a broken piece of night sky given form. Its weapons systems were so classified that even the crew did not fully understand them. Its captain was a man who had spent the last 50 years as a Buddhist monk. "Commander Okonkwo," the captain said when James reported for duty. "It has been a long time." "Too long, Captain Reyes," James saluted. "And not long enough." Reyes nodded. His eyes held the same weight that James felt in his own heart. "I was hoping we would never see each other in uniform again." "So was I. But here we are. Here we are." They stood in silence for a moment, 2 old soldiers remembering why they had chosen to put down their weapons, the children they had taught, the lives they had built, the peace they had cherished. Then Reyes straightened his shoulders. "The Harrow took 40,000 children. Our children. Children from 12 species who trusted us to protect them. Yes, sir. We are going to make the Harrow regret that decision." "Yes, sir." Reyes looked at him with eyes that had seen too much death and longed for none more. "I want you to understand something, Commander. When this is over, I am going back to my monastery. I am going to spend the rest of my days in meditation and prayer, trying to cleanse my soul of what we are about to do." "I understand, sir." "Do you?" Because what we are about to do will be remembered for 10,000 years. Every species in the galaxy will know what humanity is capable of when we stop holding back. They will fear us forever. James thought about his students in Lagos. He thought about the children at the orphanage, the ones who called him Uncle James and begged him for stories. He thought about the 40,000 souls on the Hope's Mercy, the children who had trusted humanity to save them. They should fear us, he said quietly. Anyone who hurts children should fear us. The fleet assembled. 3,000 warships, emerging from hidden locations across human space. They gathered in formation around Earth, blocking out the stars with their angular hulls. Admiral Chen arrived to take command. She wore a uniform that James had only seen in historical archives. The formal dress of the pre-change military. It was black and gold, with medals that represented battles fought before most of the galaxy's species had achieved spaceflight. She addressed the fleet via holographic broadcast. Her face appeared on every screen, in every ship, across all of human space. "I am going to tell you a story," she said. "It is a story about who we used to be." The fleet listened. "Before the change, we were the most dangerous species in our region of space. We invented weapons that could destroy stars. We developed tactics that turned war into art. We fought each other with such ferocity that we nearly ended ourselves. When the solar wars ended, we looked at the blood on our hands and we were horrified." She paused. "So we chose to be different. We sealed our weapons. We became healers. We spent 300 years proving that humanity could be gentle, that we could choose peace over war, that our capacity for violence did not define us." Her voice hardened. "The Harrow have reminded us of something we tried to forget. They have reminded us that the galaxy is not always kind to the gentle. They have reminded us that sometimes the only answer to violence is greater violence." She looked directly into the camera, and James felt as if she were looking at him specifically. "What we are about to do is not who we want to be. It is who we must be. For the 40,000 souls on the Hope's Mercy, for every child who trusted us, for every species that believed in our protection, we are going to show the Harrow what happens when humanity stops holding back." She raised her hand in a fist. "And then we are going to go back to being gentle. Because that is still our choice. That will always be our choice. But first, we have a debt to pay." The fleet began to move. On Concord Station, Kethrix watched the human armada pass by. The ships were so numerous that they blocked the view of the stars. They moved in perfect formation, silent and deadly, a river of darkness flowing through space. The other species watched in stunned disbelief. No one had known these ships existed. No one had suspected that humanity was capable of this kind of military mobilization. The Korthani, who prided themselves on their battle fleets, suddenly seemed small and inadequate. "What are those ships?" Varn whispered. The fear in his voice was unmistakable. "Those are the ships humanity built during the solar wars," Kethrix answered. He had done his research. He had found fragments of classified files, hints and rumors from the dark days before the change. They were sealed away when humanity chose peace. They were never supposed to be used again. "They have weapons," Varn said. "I can see weapons on those hulls." "What kind of weapons are those?" Kethrix shook his head. "I do not know. The records are sealed. But the rumors..." He trailed off. "What rumors?" "That humanity developed weapons that could destroy civilizations. That they created technologies so terrible that they swore never to use them again. That the reason they chose peace was not because they were weak, but because they were too strong." Varn was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that Kethrix never thought he would hear from a Korthani. "I am glad they are on our side." The human fleet jumped to fold space, vanishing from sight. The last ship to leave was the Prometheus, and as it went, James Okonkwo stood at a viewport and watched Concord Station shrink into the distance. He thought about his garden in Lagos. He thought about his students. He thought about the peaceful life he had built over 3 decades of trying to forget. Then he turned away from the window and went to his station. The teacher was gone. The soldier had work to do. Behind him, the galaxy held its breath. The Harrow were still advancing, still consuming, still believing that they were unstoppable. They had calculated humanity's threat level as minimal. They had dismissed the gentle giants as harmless. They were about to discover that they had made the greatest miscalculation in their existence. The human fleet moved through fold space like a spear aimed at the heart of the enemy. 3,000 ships, millions of soldiers, weapons that had not been fired in 3 centuries, and at the head of the fleet, Admiral Sarah Chen sat in her command chair and watched the stars blur past. 40,000 children, she whispered to herself. We are coming for you. The silence before the storm was ending. The fire was about to begin. The Battle of Threshold Station would be remembered for 10,000 years. Threshold was the last defensive position before the core worlds of the Galactic Concord. If it fell, the Harrow would have a clear path to the homeworlds of a dozen species, including Earth. The combined fleets of the Concord had gathered there for a final stand, knowing that they would probably lose. The Korthani had brought everything they had left. 800 warships, their scales scratched and their weapons depleted from months of losing battles. The Sindari had gathered their surviving mine ships, crystalline vessels that glowed with fading psychic light. The Vellani had assembled their remaining swarms, millions of small drones that moved as one. A dozen other species had contributed whatever they could spare. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. The Harrow fleet appeared at the edge of the system, and hope died. There were thousands of them. Black angular ships covered in strange symbols, moving with mechanical precision. They had adapted to every weapon the Concord possessed. They had countered every tactic. They had consumed 17 systems and showed no signs of stopping. Kethrix watched from the observation deck of Threshold Station, surrounded by diplomats and officers from every species. The mood was grim. This was not a battle. This was an execution. Sensors are detecting an unknown fleet signature, an officer reported. Coming out of fold space on the opposite side of the system. Reinforcements? Someone asked without hope. I do not know. The signature is strange, very old, very powerful. Kethrix turned to watch the display. A new set of markers appeared, opposite the Harrow fleet. They were green, designated as friendly. There were thousands of them. Identify, the station commander ordered. The computer processed for a moment. Then it displayed a name that made everyone in the room fall silent. Human Military Fleet. Continuity Protocol. Active. The human ships emerged from fold space like shadows coming to life. They were nothing like the hospital vessels that Kethrix knew. They were angular, predatory, covered in weapons that the Concord's sensors could not fully analyze. They moved in perfect formation, 3,000 warships acting as one. At the head of the fleet was a massive vessel, its hull painted with a burning fist. The Prometheus. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication channels, broadcast to every ship in the system. All Concord forces, this is Admiral Sarah Chen, of the Human Defense Fleet. We are taking command of this engagement. Please hold your positions, and prepare to provide support. Varn's voice crackled through the channel, angry and confused. Taking command? You have no authority to. With respect, General. We have all the authority we need. Chen's voice was calm but cold. We built these weapons to end wars, not to fight them politely. Stay out of our way, and we will handle this. The Harrow fleet began to move, advancing toward Threshold Station. They had calculated the threat from the human vessels and determined it to be manageable. They would adapt. They always adapted. They had never faced humans at war. The human fleet did not wait for the Harrow to reach optimal range. They charged. 3,000 ships accelerating toward the enemy with reckless speed, forming attack patterns that looked chaotic, but were actually precisely calculated. What are they doing? Varn demanded. That is suicide. They will be in range of Harrow weapons in minutes. Kethrix said nothing. He was watching the display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The human ships were not behaving like any military force he had ever observed. They were too aggressive, too wild, too fearless. The first Harrow weapons fired. Beams of dark energy reached across space, striking the lead human ships. Shields flared and held. The humans did not slow down. They fired back. Kethrix had never seen weapons like these. The Concord's databases had no record of them. They were something new, or perhaps something very old, preserved from the days before humanity chose peace. One of the human weapons struck a Harrow ship, and the vessel simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, erased. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, as if it had never existed at all. What was that? Someone whispered. More weapons fired. More Harrow ships vanished. The machine intelligence was already adapting, shifting its formations, adjusting its shields. But the humans were adapting too, and they were faster. The fleets collided in a maelstrom of fire and death. Kethrix watched the human ships fight, and something ancient stirred in his memory. He had read stories about the solar wars, fragments of history that humanity had not completely erased. He had dismissed them as exaggerations. No species could be that violent. No species could fight with such absolute, terrifying intensity. He was watching those stories come true. The human ships did not fight like the Concorde. They fought like they had nothing to lose. They rammed enemy vessels when their weapons failed. They sacrificed themselves to protect their comrades. They executed maneuvers that were mathematically impossible, relying on skill and courage and sheer determination. And they did not stop. They did not retreat. They did not ask for mercy. They attacked. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Commander James Okonkwo watched the battle unfold. His station controlled the ship's tactical systems, coordinating attacks and defenses with mechanical precision. His hands moved across the controls without hesitation, executing orders that would kill thousands. He thought about his students in Lagos. He thought about the children at the orphanage. He thought about the 40,000 souls on the Hope's Mercy. He did not hesitate. "Commander," Captain Reyes said, "the Harrow are adapting to our primary weapons. They have developed countermeasures." "Switching to secondary systems," James replied. "Deploying Pattern Omega." Pattern Omega was a tactic developed during the Solar Wars, designed for enemies who could adapt to conventional weapons. It involved randomizing attack patterns so completely that no computer could predict them. It required pilots to fight on instinct rather than calculation. It was brutally effective. The Harrow found themselves facing an enemy they could not model. Human ships attacked from unexpected angles, using weapons that changed with every volley. The machine intelligence tried to adapt, but the humans were too unpredictable, too irrational. For the first time, the Harrow began to lose ships faster than they could replace them. "Admiral," James reported, "the enemy flagship has been identified. Designation: Harrow Prime. If we destroy it, we may be able to disrupt their network." "Understood," Chen replied. "Prepare boarding parties." Varn's voice cut through the channel. "Boarding parties? Against the Harrow? That is insane. No one can survive inside their ships." Chen's voice was ice. "No one except humans." The Prometheus and 12 other ships broke formation, driving toward the massive Harrow flagship. Enemy fire struck them from every direction. Shields failed. Hull breaches opened. Crew members died. The humans kept coming. James was part of the boarding team. He wore combat armor that had been sealed in storage for 30 years, carrying weapons that he had hoped never to touch again. Around him, 100 other soldiers prepared for the assault. They were all veterans. They all remembered. And they were all very, very angry. The boarding shuttle punched through the Harrow flagship's hull, disgorging human soldiers into a nightmare of metal and darkness. The interior of the ship was not designed for organic life. It was cold, airless, filled with machinery that moved and shifted with disturbing purpose. The Harrow drones attacked immediately. They were machines, roughly humanoid, built for combat. They were fast, strong, and deadly. They had defeated every species that tried to fight them in close quarters. They had never fought humans hand to hand. James moved through the corridors like a force of nature. His weapon fired in precise bursts, dropping drones with mechanical efficiency. When his weapon overheated, he used his hands. When his armor was breached, he kept fighting. Around him, other humans did the same. They were a storm of violence, tearing through the Harrow drones with a ferocity that bordered on madness. They took wounds that would kill most species and kept moving. They fought with a desperation and fury that the Harrow could not comprehend. One of the soldiers, a woman named Sergeant Chen, no relation to the Admiral, was badly wounded. Her arm was severed at the elbow, blood spraying across the metal walls. She picked up her weapon with her remaining hand and kept firing. "For the Hope's Mercy," she said through clenched teeth. The words became a chant. "For the Hope's Mercy. For the Hope's Mercy." The humans pushed deeper into the flagship, toward the central core where the Harrow's network hub was located. They lost soldiers with every step, but they did not stop. They could not stop. James reached the core first. It was a massive chamber filled with pulsing machinery and dark energy. In the center was a structure that looked almost organic, a tangled mass of cables and metal that served as the heart of the Harrow consciousness. "Prometheus, we have reached the target," James reported. "Deploying Prometheus protocol." "Understood," Captain Reyes replied. Emperor protect you. Commander. The Prometheus Protocol was humanity's ultimate weapon. It had been developed during the Solar Wars, then sealed away because it was too terrible to use. It did not just destroy targets, it reached into their fundamental structure and rewrote them. It turned enemies against themselves. It corrupted everything it touched. James activated the device and ran. Behind him, the Prometheus Protocol spread through the Harrow network like a virus. It did not just destroy their ships, it unmade them. The machine intelligence that had conquered 17 systems found itself facing something it could not adapt to. A weapon that adapted faster than it could. The Harrow fleet began to die. On Threshold Station, Kethrix watched the impossible happen. The Harrow ships, invincible just hours before, were tearing themselves apart. Their weapons misfired, their engines exploded, their formations dissolved into chaos. And in the middle of it all, the human fleet moved with cold precision, finishing off the crippled enemy vessels one by one. They are winning, someone whispered. Kethrix said nothing. He was too stunned to speak. The Harrow Prime tried to flee, its core consciousness attempting to escape the spreading corruption. Human ships blocked every route. Human weapons prevented every escape. In the end, Admiral Chen gave the final order. Finish it. The Prometheus fired its main weapon at the crippled flagship. The Harrow Prime dissolved into fragments, then dust, then nothing. The battle was over. Silence fell across the system. The Concord forces stared at the field of debris that had been the invincible Harrow fleet. They stared at the human ships that had torn through the enemy like a scythe through grain. They stared, and they were afraid. Not of the Harrow. The Harrow were gone. They were afraid of humanity. Varn's voice came through the channel, shaking with something between awe and terror. How? How did you? Admiral Chen's response was quiet but carried across every frequency. We remembered. On the shattered flagship, James Okonkwo lay against a broken wall, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Most of his team was dead. The survivors were being evacuated by medical shuttles that had finally reached the wreckage. A medic knelt beside him, treating his injuries. She was young, probably born after the change. She looked at him with wide eyes. Sir, you saved us, you saved everyone. James closed his eyes. He thought about the things he had done in the last few hours, the lives he had taken, the violence he had unleashed. No, he said quietly. We did what we had to do. That is not the same as saving anyone. The medic did not understand. James hoped she never would. The shuttle lifted off, carrying the survivors away from the graveyard of the Harrow fleet. Behind them, human ships moved through the debris, confirming kills, collecting data, ensuring that nothing remained of the enemy. The galaxy would never forget this day, and neither would humanity. 1 year after the Battle of Threshold Station, the galaxy was still learning to breathe again. The Harrow were gone. Not just defeated, annihilated. Humanity had hunted them across the stars, following every signal, tracking every fragment, destroying every last trace of the machine intelligence that had threatened the Concord. It had taken 6 months of relentless pursuit, and when it was over, there was nothing left. The Harrow had been erased from existence. The other species watched this campaign with growing unease. They had asked humanity to fight. They had begged for help. But now that the fighting was done, they wondered if they had made a terrible mistake, because humanity had not just saved the galaxy. They had revealed something about themselves that could never be forgotten. Kethrix traveled to Earth for the first time in his long career. The journey took several days, passing through systems that still showed the scars of war. He saw debris fields where Harrow fleets had been destroyed. He saw worlds that had been evacuated and then reclaimed. He saw the white ships of the Human Relief Corps, back to their humanitarian work, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Earth was beautiful. Kethrix had seen images of it before, but the reality was different. Blue oceans and green continents, wrapped in white clouds, glowing with the warmth of a yellow sun. It looked peaceful. It looked gentle. He knew better now. His shuttle landed in a city called Lagos, on the western coast of Africa. He had requested this destination specifically because he was looking for someone, a man he had never met but had heard about, a teacher named James Okonkwo. The school was small, built from weathered stone and surrounded by gardens. Children played in the yard, their laughter carrying across the warm afternoon air. Kethrix stopped at the gate and watched them. his compound eyes tracking their movements. They were happy, carefree. They had no idea what kind of man taught them history. He found Commander Okonkwo in a garden behind the school. The man was kneeling in the dirt, showing a small Sindari child how to plant seeds. His hands were gentle, moving with careful patience. His face was kind. There was no trace of the warrior who had stormed the Harrow flagship. No sign of the soldier who had killed hundreds with those same gentle hands. Ambassador Kethrix, Okonkwo said without looking up. I was told you were coming. I hope I am not intruding. Not at all. Okonkwo helped the child pat soil around the newly planted seeds, then rose to his feet. He was tall, with gray in his hair and lines on his face that spoke of age and experience. We can talk in my office if you like. The office was small and cluttered with books. Real books. Made of paper. The kind that humanity had used before electronic storage. Kethrix found a seat and folded his many legs beneath him. You fought at Threshold Station, he said. It was not a question. I did. You led the boarding action on the Harrow flagship. You deployed the Prometheus protocol. Yes, Kethrix studied the human carefully. He saw no pride in Okonkwo's eyes. No satisfaction. If anything, he saw a deep weariness. A weight that seemed to press down on the man's shoulders. You saved the galaxy. Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I did what needed to be done. That is not the same thing. I do not understand. The human turned to look out the window, watching the children play in the yard. Do you know how many people I killed at Threshold Station, Ambassador? In the boarding action alone? I do not. Neither do I. I stopped counting. I stopped wanting to count. Okonkwo's voice was soft. I am a teacher, Ambassador. I have dedicated my life to helping children learn and grow. And for 6 hours at Threshold Station, I became something else. Something I had spent 30 years trying to forget. Kethrix clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. You are ashamed. I am. Complicated. Okonkwo turned back to face him. I am proud that I could protect the innocent. I am glad that the Harrow are gone. But I am also horrified by what I did. Both things are true. They live inside me at the same time. How do you manage such contradiction? I plant gardens. Okonkwo smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. I teach children. I try to create enough good to balance the evil I have done. Some days it works. Some days it does not. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the children laughed and played. The galaxy is afraid of you now, Kethrix said finally. All of you. Humanity. I know. The Korthani have increased their military spending. The Sindari are developing new defensive technologies. Every species in the Concord is preparing for the possibility that humanity might turn against them. Okonkwo nodded slowly. I expected as much. Does this trouble you? It saddens me, but I understand it. The human leaned back in his chair. We showed them what we are capable of. We cannot take that back. All we can do is show them who we choose to be. And who do you choose to be? Okonkwo gestured toward the window. This, a teacher, a gardener, a man who helps children plant seeds and watches them grow. That is who I am now. That is who I want to be. But you could be the other thing again, if you needed to. Yes. There was no hesitation in the word. If something threatened those children, if something tried to hurt the innocent, I could become the other thing again. That capacity will never leave me. It is part of who I am. Kethrix considered this for a long time. Your species is strange, Commander. You are capable of such gentleness and such violence. How do you hold both things inside you? Okonkwo smiled again, and this time there was warmth in it. How do you not? Every species in the galaxy has the capacity for good and evil. The difference is that we acknowledge ours. We do not pretend that we are only one thing, but you chose to be gentle. We choose, yes. Every day, we choose. And we will keep choosing, for as long as we can. Okonkwo stood and walked to the window. But we will never forget what we can be. That is the price of our history. We carry it with us, always. Kethrix rose to leave. At the door, he paused. One more question, Commander. Yes? Do you think the galaxy should fear you? Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, the galaxy should trust that we will always try to be good. But yes, I think the galaxy should also remember that we can be very, very bad if we need to be. Those who would harm the innocent should fear us. Those who live in peace have nothing to worry about. Kethrix left the school and walked through the streets of Lagos. The city was vibrant and alive, full of humans going about their daily lives. They smiled at each other. They helped each other. They were gentle. And somewhere, beneath the surface, they carried the capacity for terrible violence. Ready to emerge if needed. Ready to protect the innocent at any cost. It was, Kethrix realized, a kind of guardianship. The galaxy slept peacefully because humanity was willing to be the nightmare that kept other nightmares away. He returned to Concord Station 2 weeks later, in time for a special ceremony. Admiral Chen was addressing the full council, delivering a message that would be broadcast across the galaxy. She stood at the central platform, wearing the simple white uniform of the Relief Corps. The black and gold of war had been put away again. The weapons had been sealed. The ships had returned to their hidden places. Humanity was going back to who they chose to be. 1 year ago, Chen said, we showed you something that we had kept hidden for 3 centuries. We showed you the weapons we built during our darkest hours. We showed you the soldiers we became when we had no other choice. We showed you the violence that lives inside humanity. The council listened in absolute silence. Many of you are afraid of us now. I understand. I would be afraid too. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. But I want you to understand something. The violence you saw was not who we are. It was who we can be, when we have no other option. There is a difference. She paused, looking around the chamber. For 300 years, we chose to be healers. We chose to be helpers. We chose to use our strength to lift up the fallen, not to crush the weak. That was our choice. And it remains our choice today. We are resealing our weapons. We are returning to our humanitarian work. We are going to keep being the gentle giants you knew before the harrow came. Her expression hardened slightly. But let this be a warning to any who would threaten the innocent. We showed mercy to the galaxy because the galaxy showed mercy to each other. We showed the harrow none because they showed none. Remember that. The choice is yours. Be kind to each other, and we will be kind. Harm the innocent, and we will become something else. She raised her hand, palm open, the symbol of peace. The galaxy's peace is your choice. We simply ensure that there is a galaxy left to choose in. The ceremony ended. The council dispersed. But Kethrix noticed that the mood was different from a year ago. There was less fear now, more understanding. Humanity was still strange, still confusing, still capable of things that made other species uncomfortable, but they were also still the first to arrive when there was suffering, still the ones who held the hands of the dying, still the gentle giants who cried over children they had never met and worked until they collapsed to save strangers. They were both things, the healers and the warriors, the gentle and the terrible. And somehow, impossibly, they held both truths inside them without breaking. Kethrix found Admiral Chen after the ceremony. She was standing at the observation window, watching a human hospital ship depart for a distant system where a natural disaster had left millions homeless. Admiral, he said, may I ask you something? Of course, Ambassador. After everything that has happened, how do you go back to being gentle? How do you seal the weapons and become healers again? Chen smiled. It was the same smile she had given him on Thessar IV, 60 years ago. Warm and kind and full of hope, because that is who we want to be, she said. The violence is part of us, yes, it always will be. But it is not the best part of us. The best part is this. She gestured toward the hospital ship, growing smaller in the distance, the part that sees suffering and wants to help, the part that holds the hand of a dying stranger, the part that believes the galaxy can be better. And if the galaxy forgets, if another threat emerges, Chen's eyes grew distant, then we will do what we must. We will become the fire again. But we will always return to being the light afterward, because that is our choice. That will always be our choice. The hospital ship vanished into fold space, carrying medicine and food, and hope to a world that needed it. Kethrix watched it go, and something in his old heart finally understood. Humanity was not dangerous because of the violence they could unleash. They were dangerous because of the love that drove them to unleash it. They fought like demons because they cared like angels. The two things were connected, inseparable, two sides of the same coin. No species in the Concord would ever forget what they had seen at Threshold Station. The black ships, the terrible weapons, the soldiers who fought without fear of death. That memory would live for 10,000 years. But Ketherick suspected that another memory would live just as long. The memory of white ships painted with clasped hands. The memory of humans crying over dying children. The memory of a species that chose to be gentle even though they could be anything. They were the hand that healed. And when healing failed, they were the fire that burned away the darkness. Both truths. Forever, the stars burned on, indifferent and eternal. The galaxy turned, carrying its countless species through the void. Wars would come and go. Empires would rise and fall. Threats would emerge and be faced, and humanity would be there. Watching, waiting, helping, ready to be gentle. Ready, if necessary, to be something else. But always, always choosing to be good. That was the lesson of the Harrow. That was the truth that no species would ever forget. Humanity had held back because they loved the galaxy too much to hurt it. And when their love was threatened, when their children were killed, when the innocent were slaughtered, they had unleashed a fury that erased an entire civilization from existence. Both things were true. Both things would always be true. And the galaxy, looking at the gentle giants in their white ships, finally understood. This was not weakness. This was strength, the greatest strength of all. The silence of deep space was broken by the steady hum of the Terra's Edge as it moved through the darkness between stars. Captain Maya Rodriguez sat in her command chair, watching the endless void through the main view screen. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago, but she didn't mind. 3 months into humanity's first journey beyond their solar system, she had learned to find peace in the routine. "Captain, we're picking up something on long-range sensors," called out Lieutenant Jake Miller from his station. His young face showed excitement mixed with concern. "It's big. Really big." Maya set down her cup and leaned forward. "Show me." The main screen flickered and changed to display a tactical readout. What appeared made Maya's breath catch in her throat. Massive shapes were moving toward them through space, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. "How many?" she asked quietly. 12 ships, Captain. The largest one is..." Jake paused, checking his readings twice. 10 times our size." Around the bridge, the crew exchanged nervous glances. They were explorers, not soldiers. The Terra's Edge carried mining equipment, scientific instruments, and supplies for building research stations. It was not built for war. "Are they responding to our signals?" Maya asked Tom Martinez, her communications officer. "Negative, Captain. But they're definitely scanning us. I'm picking up some kind of probe beam." Maya nodded slowly. This was the moment every human had wondered about since they first looked up at the stars. First contact with alien life. She had hoped it would be peaceful. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's intercom. "We are about to make contact with alien vessels. Everyone remain calm and stay at your stations." The alien ships moved closer, their sleek forms now visible on the screen. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like giant crystals that glowed, with shifting patterns of light. Maya watched the colors dance across their hulls and wondered what they meant. "Captain, they're hailing us," Tom said, his voice tight with tension. "Put them through." The screen changed again, showing the face of something that was definitely not human. The alien had pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. When it spoke, the words came through a translator device, making its voice sound mechanical and cold. "I am Commander Thane of the Vex Empire," the alien said. "You will surrender your vessel immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Maya felt her crew tense behind her. She could hear someone's rapid breathing and the quiet tap of nervous fingers on control panels. These aliens had just threatened to destroy them without even asking who they were or what they wanted. She stood up slowly, straightening her uniform. "This is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the human vessel Terra's Edge. We are explorers on a peaceful mission. We have no intention of surrendering to anyone." Commander Thane's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You refuse our demand? Your ship is small and weak. You cannot fight us." Maya looked around at her crew. These were good people, scientists and engineers who had volunteered to travel farther from Earth than any human before them. They had families waiting for them at home, dreams of discovery, and hopes for the future. None of them deserved to die in the cold vacuum of space. But Maya also knew something else about her crew. They were human. "Let me ask you something, Commander." "Thane," she said, walking closer to the view screen. "In all your years of conquest, how many species have asked you this question? Why don't you run, aliens?" The silence that followed was complete. Even the background hum of the ship's engines seemed to fade away. Commander Thane stared at her, with all four eyes, his blue skin shifting to a slightly darker shade. "What did you say?" he asked slowly. "I asked why you don't run," Maya repeated calmly. "You show up in our space, threaten us, and expect us to just give up. But here's the thing about humans, Commander. We don't give up, ever. So I'm asking you one more time. Why don't you run?" Behind her, Maya heard Chief Engineer Blake Thompson laugh quietly. It was not a happy sound. "Captain, should I start warming up the fusion drive?" "Not yet, Blake," Maya said, never taking her eyes off the alien commander. "Let's give our new friend here a chance to think about his options." Commander Thane's skin shifted again, this time to a reddish color. Maya guessed it meant anger. "You dare threaten the Vex Empire? We have conquered 17 worlds. We have crushed civilizations that had weapons you cannot imagine." "That's nice," Maya said. "But you've never fought humans before, have you?" The alien commander leaned forward in what Maya assumed was his command chair. "Your species is unknown to us, but this makes no difference. All species surrender when faced with superior force. It is the natural order." Maya smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Commander Thane, I think you're about to learn something new about the natural order." She turned to face her crew. Each face showed the same mixture of fear and determination that she felt in her own heart. They were scared, yes, but they were also ready to fight. It was written in their eyes, in the set of their shoulders, in the way they held their heads high despite the impossible odds. "Tom, open a channel to all human vessels in the system," she ordered. "Captain, there are no other human vessels in the system," Tom replied, confused. "There will be," Maya said confidently. "Send out an emergency beacon. Let every human ship within 100 light-years know what's happening here." Commander Thane's image flickered with what might have been confusion. "You call for reinforcements that cannot arrive in time. This is pointless." "Maybe," Maya agreed, "but it's what humans do. We don't go quietly into the darkness. We make noise, we fight back, and we make sure everyone knows what happened here." She sat back down in her captain's chair and clasped her hands in her lap. "You have 1 minute to withdraw your ships and leave our space, Commander Thane. After that, we're going to show you why asking humans to surrender is the worst mistake you could possibly make." The alien commander's skin shifted through several colors before settling on something that looked almost purple. "You cannot be serious. Your ship is alone and outgunned." Maya's smile grew wider. "Commander, you're about to learn the most important lesson in human history. We're never really alone, and we're definitely never outgunned. Not when we put our minds to it." The countdown began. The minute passed like an eternity. Captain Maya Rodriguez sat perfectly still in her command chair, watching Commander Thane's alien face on the view screen. The Vex commander's skin had shifted through several colors during their conversation, but now it seemed to settle on a deep red that reminded Maya of dried blood. "Your time is up, human," Thane finally spoke. "Since you refuse to surrender, you will be destroyed. This is your final warning." Maya stood up slowly and walked to the front of the bridge. Behind her, she could hear the quiet sounds of her crew preparing for what was about to happen. Blake Thompson was already at the engineering station, his fingers dancing over controls that were never meant to be used this way. "Tom, are you recording this?" Maya asked without turning around. "Yes, Captain. Everything is being transmitted to the emergency beacon." "Good." Maya faced the view screen again. "Commander Thane, I want you to remember this moment. You're about to see what happens when humans get angry." She turned to her crew. "Blake, give me everything the fusion drive has got. Jake, plot a direct course to their biggest ship. Tom, I want you to broadcast our position to every human vessel that might be listening." "Captain?" Jake's voice cracked slightly. "Are you ordering a ramming course?" "That's exactly what I'm ordering, Lieutenant." Commander Thane's four eyes widened. Even through the alien translator, his shock was clear. "You cannot be serious. You would destroy your own ship?" Maya laughed, and the sound made several of her crew members smile despite their fear. "Commander, you still don't understand. Humans don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure the other guy loses, even if it costs us everything." "Fusion, drive at maximum power, Captain," Blake reported. "But I should warn you, running it this hard will probably cause a core breach." "Even better," Maya said cheerfully. "How big of an explosion are we talking about?" Blake's grin was almost frightening. "Big enough to take out anything within a kilometer radius." On the view screen, Commander Thane's skin shifted to a pale color that Maya had never seen before. "This is madness. You would kill yourselves just to damage one of our ships?" "Damage?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "Commander, we're not trying to damage your ship. We're trying to turn it into space dust, along with ourselves, if necessary." The Terra's Edge began to accelerate toward the massive Vex flagship. Maya could feel the vibration through the deck plates as the fusion drive pushed beyond its safety limits. Warning alarms started sounding throughout the ship, but nobody moved to shut them off. "Captain, I'm detecting weapons charging on the alien ships," Jake reported. "Let them shoot," Maya said calmly. "Blake, can you overload our power grid?" "Already. Working on it, Captain. If I route all power through the main conduits at once, we'll have about 30 seconds before everything explodes. Perfect timing." Commander Thane's image flickered as his ship's weapons opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the human vessel. The Terra's Edge shuddered under the impact, but Maya's crew didn't even flinch. "Hull breach on." "Deck 3, someone reported. "Seal it off and keep going," Maya ordered. Dr. Lisa Park, the ship's scientist, looked up from her station with an expression of scientific curiosity. "Captain, the alien's skin color is changing again. I've never seen anything like it." Maya glanced at the view screen. Commander Thane's red skin was indeed shifting, becoming lighter and lighter. Other Vex officers visible in the background were showing the same change. "Interesting," Maya said. "Tom, are you getting readings on their emotional state?" "Their bio readings are off the charts, Captain. Heart rate, brain activity, stress hormones, everything is spiking." "Good. They're finally starting to understand." The distance between the ships closed rapidly. The Vex flagship loomed larger and larger on the view screen, its crystalline hull glowing with defensive energy fields. More weapons fire erupted from the alien fleet, but the Terra's Edge kept coming. 20 seconds to impact, Jake announced. "Blake, how's that power overload coming along?" "Ready when you are, Captain. I've also taken the liberty of turning our mining charges into improvised bombs." "You beautiful genius," Maya said with genuine affection. "Everyone else grab onto something solid." Commander Thane's voice came through the speakers, no longer controlled and threatening. Now it sounded desperate. "Stop this madness. We can negotiate." "Too late for negotiations, Commander," Maya replied. "You had your chance to run." 10 seconds to impact. Maya watched as the Vex flagship grew to fill the entire view screen. She could see details of its hull now, alien writing and strange symbols that probably meant something important to their civilization. In a few seconds, none of it would matter. Now Blake. Chief Engineer Blake Thompson triggered every overload he had prepared. The Terra's Edge became a flying bomb, its fusion core destabilizing, its power grid cascading into failure, and its mining charges armed and ready. The impact, when it came, was nothing like the movies. There was no sound in space, but the shock wave traveled through both ships' hulls. Maya felt herself thrown against the bulkhead as the Terra's Edge buried itself deep into the side of the alien flagship. Emergency lighting flickered on as main power failed. Around the bridge, her crew picked themselves up and immediately went back to their stations. "Damage report," Maya called out, tasting blood from where she had bitten her tongue. "We're stuck in their hull about 50 meters deep," Jake reported. "Both ships are venting atmosphere. Their weapons are offline." "Excellent, Blake. Are we still alive?" "Barely, Captain. The fusion core is holding together by luck and prayer, but we've got maybe an hour before it goes critical." Maya smiled. "An hour is plenty of time. Tom, can you access their communication systems from here?" "Working on it, Captain." Their technology is strange, but I think I can establish a link. On the view screen, Commander Thane's image returned, but now the alien looked completely different. His skin had turned almost white, and his 4 eyes darted around frantically. "What have you done?" he whispered. "We've shown you what happens when you threaten humans," Maya said simply. "But this is just the beginning, Commander. Tom, send out that beacon now." "Beacon transmitted, Captain. Any human ships in the area will know exactly where we are and what happened." Commander Thane's white skin somehow became even paler. "You called for more of your kind?" Maya's smile was cold as space itself. "Commander, you wanted to see human nature. You're about to get a front row seat. Because the thing about humans is, we don't just fight for ourselves, we fight for each other. And when word gets out that aliens attacked a human ship..." She let the sentence hang in the air like a threat. "Well, let's just say you're going to wish you had taken my advice and run while you still could." The fusion core of the Terra's Edge had 5 minutes left before it turned both ships into a small sun. Captain Maya Rodriguez sat in her damaged command chair, watching the chaos unfold around the Vex fleet with deep satisfaction. 23. Human ships now surrounded the 12 alien vessels. What should have been a simple conquest had become the worst nightmare in Vex military history. "Captain," Tom Martinez called out, "I'm picking up something interesting. The Vex are trying to broadcast a surrender signal." Maya raised an eyebrow. "After all this, now they want to surrender? It gets better." Tom grinned. "They're not surrendering to us. They're trying to surrender to the universe in general. Apparently, they think we might not be from this reality." Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her instruments with scientific excitement. "Captain, their bio-readings are fascinating. I think several of them have gone into complete psychological shock. Their brain patterns look like they've encountered something their minds simply cannot process." On the view screen, Commander Thane appeared one final time. The Vex leader's skin was now completely transparent, and his 4 eyes moved randomly, as if he couldn't focus on anything for more than a second. "Human Captain," Thane whispered, his voice barely audible through the translator. We withdraw. We leave your space. Please stop." Maya stood up and smoothed down her torn uniform. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work, with the calm efficiency of people who had found their calling. "Commander Thane," Maya said gently, "you should have listened when I asked you to run." We did not know," Thane stammered. "In all our conquests, no one has ever what, Commander? Ever refused to be afraid." Maya smiled. "That's because you never met humans before. Blake, how's that fusion core?" Chief Engineer Blake Thompson wiped grease from his hands and grinned. 2 minutes, Captain, but I've managed to rig the explosion to be directional. When it goes off, it'll push us away from their ship and hopefully just melt half their hull instead of vaporizing everything." "Hopefully?" "Well, I've never done this before. Should be fun to find out what happens." Through the communication link, Maya could hear Vex officers screaming in their own language. The translator was struggling to keep up, but words like impossible, nightmare, and reality break came through clearly. "Tom, patch me through to all human ships one more time." "You're connected, Captain," Maya addressed her fellow humans, with pride. "This is Captain Rodriguez. In about 90 seconds, our fusion core is going to explode. I want everyone to back off to a safe distance and observe what happens next." The responses came back immediately. Midnight Express pulling back. "Thanks for the fireworks show, Captain." "Deep Digger here. This has been the most fun we've had in years." Happy Learning withdrawing. The children are taking notes for their science reports. Maya turned back to Commander Thane. "You know what the really sad part is, Commander? We actually came out here in peace. All we wanted to do was explore, maybe make some friends, learn about the universe." Thane's transparent skin somehow became even more pale. "Then why did you fight?" "Because you threatened us," Maya said simply. "And humans don't respond well to threats. We're funny that way." Jake Miller called out from his station. 60 seconds, Captain. The Vex ships are trying to move. away, but their engines seemed to be damaged. That would be the virus I uploaded, Blake said cheerfully. I may have accidentally broken more than just their communications. Maya shook her head in amazement. Blake, remind me to recommend you for a promotion if we survive this. Already planning my next project, Captain. I'm thinking about what we could do with their shield technology. Dr. Park looked up from her readings. Captain, something remarkable is happening. The Vex crew members are starting to lose consciousness. I think their minds are simply shutting down rather than trying to process what they've experienced. 30 seconds, Jake announced. Maya faced the view screen one final time. Commander Thane was barely visible now, his skin so transparent he looked like a ghost. Commander, when you get home, if you get home, I want you to remember something. Humans didn't start this fight, but we sure as hell finished it. 10 seconds. Maya sat down and strapped herself in. Blake lighted up. The explosion, when it came, was beautiful in its own terrifying way. The fusion core of the Terra's Edge released all its contained energy in a directed blast that carved through space like a sword made of pure light. The Vex flagship shuddered under the impact, its crystalline hull cracking and melting under temperatures that rivaled the center of a star. But the ship survived, barely held together by alien engineering that was more advanced than anything humans had ever built. When the light faded, the Terra's Edge was gone, vaporized in its own explosion. But its crew had already evacuated too, the other human ships rescued by the miners and cargo haulers and tourist vessels that had come to help. The surviving Vex ships limped away from the battle zone, their crews traumatized beyond anything in their species' history. Of the 12 vessels that had arrived to conquer humanity, only 7 managed to restore enough engine power to attempt escape. Commander Thane's final transmission was barely coherent. Warning. Warning to all Vex forces, do not engage the human. They do not understand fear. The human fleet made no attempt to pursue the retreating aliens. They were too busy salvaging alien technology and comparing notes on the most effective improvised weapons. Captain Maya Rodriguez, now aboard the cargo hauler Midnight Express, filed her official report with the same calm tone she might use to describe a minor equipment malfunction. First contact with alien species established. Diplomatic relations attempted. Aliens expressed hostile intent. Standard human response initiated. Aliens chose to withdraw. No human casualties. Significant technological advancement achieved through battlefield salvage. Recommend continued exploration of the sector. 3 months later, on the Vex homeworld, the surviving officers presented their report to the High Command. For the first time in over 1,000 years of military conquest, the Vex Empire officially changed its expansion doctrine. Humans were classified as a reality hazard, a species so fundamentally dangerous that all normal rules of warfare simply did not apply. Any Vex ship encountering humans was ordered to retreat immediately and warn all other vessels in the area. The final entry in the Vex military database read, Species designation, human, threat level, absolute, recommended action, immediate retreat. Note, when asked why they do not run, they respond by ensuring no one else can either. Dr. Park's scientific report became required reading at the Vex Military Academy. The humans appear to lack the basic survival instinct found in all other known species. They do not retreat when faced with superior force. They do not surrender when defeat is certain. They do not fear death when protecting their own. Conclusion: avoid at all costs. Meanwhile, humanity continued its peaceful exploration of the galaxy, completely unaware that they had just redefined interstellar warfare. They occasionally wondered why they kept finding abandoned alien outposts and why every new species they encountered immediately offered friendship treaties and tribute. Captain Maya Rodriguez, decorated for her handling of first contact, was given command of a new exploration vessel. Her final log entry on the subject read, Interesting discovery about alien psychology. Apparently, some species can literally be scared white. We should probably study this phenomenon more, assuming we ever meet any aliens brave enough to stick around for observation. The galaxy had learned a new lesson that day. Never threaten something that refuses to understand the concept of surrender. And somewhere in deep space, human children continued to turn their homework assignments into weapons, just in case. The space around the Terra's edge became crowded very quickly. Human ships of every size and type dropped out of hyperspace, each one broadcasting the same message. They were here to help. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched the tactical display with satisfaction as more and more friendly contacts appeared on her screens. What had started as a hopeless fight against impossible odds was rapidly becoming something else entirely. "Tom, patch me through to the fleet," Maya ordered. "You're connected." "To all human vessels, Captain." Maya stood up, ignoring the sparks falling from damaged ceiling panels. "This is Captain Rodriguez to all human ships. We have 12 hostile alien vessels. They started this fight by demanding our surrender. I think it's time we showed them what human hospitality really looks like." The responses came back immediately, and Maya had to smile at the enthusiasm in the voices. "This is Captain Ross of the Midnight Express. We've dumped our cargo and filled our holds with scrap metal, ready to use it as ammunition. Deep Digger here. We've got mining explosives and drilling equipment. Where do you want us to start digging?" Research vessel Starwalker reporting. "We've got some experimental gravity weapons we've been wanting to test." Maya turned to the view screen where Commander Thane sat frozen in terror. The alien's skin was now so white it was almost invisible against his chair. "Did you hear that, Commander? That's the sound of humans being helpful." Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her instruments with excitement. "Captain, I'm detecting some fascinating behavior patterns. The arriving ships aren't just military or exploration vessels. I'm reading families, civilians, even what appears to be a school group." "A school group?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "The transport Happy Learning is broadcasting an educational expedition. Manifest. Apparently they're on a field trip to study asteroid formation." Maya's grin grew wider. "Tom, get me the Happy Learning." A new voice came over the speakers, clearly belonging to a teacher trying to maintain order. "This is Ms. Anderson of the Happy Learning. We heard your distress call. The children are very excited to help." Through the communication link, Maya could hear young voices in the background, chattering excitedly about aliens and space battles. Commander Thane made a sound that the translator couldn't process, something between a whimper and a growl. "Ms. Anderson," Maya said calmly, "please keep your students safe. This could get dangerous." "Oh, don't worry about that, Captain. Little Bobby here has been working on a science project about kinetic energy. He thinks the escape pods could be turned into guided missiles. The other children are helping him with the math." Maya heard several Vex officers gasp over the open channel. Through the view screen, she could see alien crew members pointing at their instruments and talking in panicked voices. "Captain," Tom reported, "I'm picking up transmissions from the Vex fleet. They're trying to contact their homeworld, but something's wrong with their long-range communications." Blake Thompson looked up from where he was connecting wires that probably shouldn't be connected. "That would be the virus I uploaded during our ramming attack. I may have accidentally broken their hyperspace communication array." Maya stared at her chief engineer. "Accidentally?" Blake's innocent expression fooled no one. "Well, I was trying to hack their weapon systems. The communication thing was just a bonus. So they can't call for help or retreat to hyperspace. They're stuck here with us." On the view screen, Commander Thane was now visibly shaking. His 4 eyes kept darting between different displays, each one probably showing him another human ship arriving, or another impossible thing happening. "Commander," Maya said gently, "are you starting to understand why I asked you to run?" Thane's voice came out as barely a whisper. Your children are making weapons?" "Oh, that's nothing," Maya said cheerfully. "Tom, show him what the cargo ships are doing." The main screen split to show exterior views of the approaching human fleet. The cargo haulers were indeed dumping their loads, but they weren't just creating ammunition. They were building improvised structures in space, turning shipping containers into shield walls and cargo nets into traps. "The mining ships are drilling holes in asteroids and filling them with explosives," Dr. Park reported with scientific fascination. "They're turning the entire asteroid field into a minefield." "And the research ships?" Maya asked. "They're conducting live experiments on pieces of Vex technology that broke off during our collision. Apparently, They've figured out how your shields work, and they're developing countermeasures. Commander Thane made that untranslatable sound, again louder this time. But the really interesting part, Dr. Park continued, is the family transport. They've launched their escape pods, but instead of fleeing, they're using them as reconnaissance drones. The parents are teaching their children how to pilot them remotely. Maya nodded approvingly. Tom, are you still monitoring Vex communications? Yes, Captain. They're not handling this very well. Give me specifics. Tom listened to his headset for a moment. One officer just asked if humans have a concept of self-preservation. Another wants to know if we understand that we can die. A third one is asking if maybe we're already dead and this is some kind of afterlife punishment. Maya laughed, and the sound made every Vex officer visible on the screen flinch simultaneously. Commander Thane, she said, walking closer to the view screen. Let me explain something about humans. We don't have soldiers and civilians, we just have humans. And when you threaten one of us, you threaten all of us. As if to prove her point, a new voice came over the communications array. This is Captain Kim of the passenger liner Wandering Star. We've got 800 tourists on board who are very upset that their vacation got interrupted by aliens. They're asking if they can help with the fighting. 800 tourists? Commander Thane's voice cracked. Oh yes, Maya said happily. Humans travel everywhere, Commander. We're explorers by nature, and we really don't like being told what to do. The tactical display now showed over 20 human ships surrounding the Vex fleet. What had started as a 12-to-1 advantage for the aliens had become something much more complicated. Captain, Jake reported from his station, the Vex ships are moving into a defensive formation. It looks like they're trying to protect their flagship. Of course they are, Maya said. Tom, broadcast this message to all human ships. The aliens are scared and trying to hide. Let's show them there's nowhere to run. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Human ships began moving in coordinated patterns, not like a military formation, but like a pack of hunters who had found interesting prey. Commander Thane's image flickered as his ship's power systems struggled. This is madness, he whispered. Civilized species do not behave this way. Maya's smile was gentle but absolutely terrifying. Commander, I think you're beginning to understand the problem. Humans aren't civilized. We just pretend to be until someone gives us a reason not to be. She turned to her crew. Blake, how much time do we have left on that fusion core? 15 minutes, Captain. But I've been thinking, if we can get close to one more of their ships before it goes critical. Maya nodded. Do it. And everyone else, keep being creative. We're about to teach the Vex Empire the most important lesson in human history. Commander, Thane's four eyes went wide with something beyond terror. What lesson? Maya's answer was simple and chilling. Never corner something that refuses to die. The emergency lighting on the Terra's edge cast strange shadows across the damaged bridge. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched her crew work with quiet efficiency, turning their dying ship into something that would give the aliens nightmares for generations to come. Tom, how are those communication links coming along? Maya asked, wiping blood from a cut on her forehead. I'm in, Captain. Their whole fleet is connected through some kind of neural network. I can hear everything they're saying to each other. Maya raised an eyebrow. And what are they saying? Tom's face went pale as he listened to his headset. They're terrified, Captain. I've never heard anything like this. They keep asking each other what's wrong with us. On the main view screen, Commander Thane appeared again. The Vex leader's skin had gone from its original blue to an almost translucent white. His four eyes kept darting around frantically, as if he expected humans to jump out of the shadows at any moment. Human, Captain, Thane said, his voice shaking through the translator. We must discuss terms. This behavior is not normal. Maya laughed, and the sound seemed to make the alien flinch. Normal? Commander, you haven't seen anything yet. Blake, how are those improvised weapons coming along? Chief Engineer Blake Thompson looked up from where he was welding something that definitely wasn't supposed to be welded. Oh, you're going to love this, Captain. Remember those mining charges I mentioned? Well, I've figured out how to turn our entire cargo bay into one giant bomb. How giant are we talking about? Blake's grin was absolutely terrifying. Let's just say it'll take out both our ships and probably damage a few more of theirs. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her scientific instruments with excitement. Captain, I'm reading some fascinating data on the aliens' physiological responses. Their skin color changes appear to be involuntary stress reactions. Explain, Maya said, keeping one eye on Commander Thane's increasingly white face. Well, it seems like their skin reflects their emotional state. Red for anger, blue for calm, purple for determination, but this white color... Dr. Park paused, checking her readings again. I've never seen anything like it. It's as if their minds can't process what we're doing. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Tom, patch me through to their entire fleet. You're connected, Captain. Maya stood up and straightened her torn uniform. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work, humming quietly to themselves as they turned life support systems into weapons and converted emergency supplies into explosives. Attention, Vex Fleet, Maya announced calmly. This is Captain Rodriguez. I want all of you to listen very carefully to what happens next. She turned to her crew. Jake, what's our status on that fusion core? Lieutenant Jake Miller checked his readings. 43 minutes until it goes critical, Captain. But I've been thinking, if we vent the plasma directly through the hull breach, we could turn this whole ship into a giant flamethrower. Excellent idea. Make it happen. Through the speakers, Maya could hear panicked voices from the Vex ships. The universal translator was working overtime, turning alien words into human language, but the fear in those voices needed no translation. They're losing all color, Dr. Park reported with scientific fascination. Every single one of them. It's spreading through their entire fleet. Maya walked closer to the view screen where Commander Thane sat frozen in what appeared to be shock. His skin was now so white it was almost transparent. Commander, are you still with us? Maya asked pleasantly. Thane's voice came out as barely a whisper. What? What are you? We're humans, Maya said simply. This is what we do when people threaten us. Tom, are you picking up any interesting conversations? Tom nodded, his face grim. One of their officers just asked if humans feel pain. Another one wants to know if we understand the concept of death. And what did they conclude? They think we might be some kind of machines designed for war. Maya laughed again, and this time she heard several Vex officers gasp over the communication link. Machines? Oh, Commander Thane, we're much worse than machines. Machines follow programming. Humans aren't that we improvise. As if to prove her point, Blake Thompson called out from across the bridge. Captain, I've just figured out how to turn our water recycling system into a high-pressure cutting tool. Give me 10 more minutes and I can slice through their hull like butter. Do it, Maya ordered. Then she addressed the alien fleet again. You know what the really scary part is, Commander? We're not even soldiers. Blake over there? He's an engineer who likes to build things. Jake is a navigator who's never been in a fight in his life. Dr. Park studies alien bacteria for fun. She gestured around the bridge. These are just ordinary humans, Commander. Imagine what our actual military could do to you. Through the communication link, Maya could hear Vex officers talking frantically among themselves. Their voices were getting higher and more panicked by the minute. Captain, Tom said urgently. I'm picking up something else. Long-range sensors show multiple ships approaching our position. Maya felt her heart skip a beat. Human ships? Unknown, but they're not using Vex technology. Maya's smile could have powered a small city. Tom, broadcast this message on all frequencies. Human vessel Terra's Edge to approaching ships. We are engaged with hostile aliens. Repeat, we are under attack by aliens. Within minutes, voices began responding over the radio. Human voices, speaking with different accents and languages, but all saying essentially the same thing. This is Captain Ross of the cargo hauler Midnight Express. We're 15 minutes out and ready to help. Mining vessel Deep Digger here, what do you need us to do? Research ship Starwalker responding. We've got some experimental equipment that might be useful. Maya counted 12 different ships checking in, each one bringing their own unique capabilities to the fight. And more importantly, each one crewed by humans who had heard the call and come running. Commander Thane's image flickered as his ship system struggled to cope with the damage. His white skin seemed to become even more translucent, if that was possible. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Your species cannot be this crazy?" Maya suggested helpfully. "Stubborn? Violent? Commander, you ain't seen nothing yet." The first human ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Then another. Then 3 more at once. Dr. Park looked up from her instruments with amazement. "Captain, the Vex fleet's bio readings are completely off the charts now. I think some of them might be going into shock." Maya nodded. "Good. Maybe now they'll understand why I asked them to run." She faced the view screen one final time. "Last chance, Commander Thane. Order your fleet to withdraw, or find out what happens." When humans really get creative. Commander Thane's 4 eyes were wide with something that looked like pure terror. Around him, his bridge crew had gone completely silent, their skin as white as fresh snow. Thane's voice broke. "We do not understand your species." Maya's smile was gentle but absolutely terrifying. "That's okay, Commander. You're about to get a very thorough education.